Hello and welcome back to another movie review. This week I will be reviewing Late Night with the Devil. I'm Shayde for the New Wave Nerds. Subscribe down below for more content like this, and let's get to the show. Late Night with the Devil is a horror movie set in 1977 where a live broadcast goes horribly wrong, unleashing evil into the nation's living rooms. Written and directed by Cameron Cairnes and Colin Cairnes, Late Night with the Devil is a fantastic indie movie that I believe everyone should at least go watch, especially horror fans. Now, this movie was a movie that I was very, very excited to see when I first saw the trailer for it. Now, I didn't know too much about the movie, but I wish I learned more about it early on because there's so much to unpack with this film. It was just such a hard thing for them to do. There was just such a low budget for it, but they accomplished it with ease. Now, the movie has some flaws, of course, it being a low budget and all, but the flaws are countered out by the pros, especially because this is David Dastmalchian's this is his first lead role in a movie. As you all know, or as a lot of maybe movie nerds know, not a lot of people might dive deep into this, but most of the time he is just a character actor. He is just a little bit of just a side guy, someone that they use to usually kill. At least most of the times that I see him for the 20 minutes in a movie, except for Ant-Man. For a very long time, only thing I knew this guy from was Ant-Man. He was just the guy from Ant-Man for me, and he was my favorite guy. He was the Baba Yaga guy, So he was so close to my heart because he made me giggle when I was a kid. But seeing him in this changes the game. This showed me his full potential in acting, and I mean, rewatching The Dark Knight not too long ago, I saw him in that. Which, of course, if you've been watching the pod for a while, I love The Dark Knight. I've loved it for a while. I didn't know this was this guy. And watching that again, seeing his acting in that, and then seeing his acting in a couple other movies as a character actor, man, he can really play a role. He can play such an emotional role. He can be such a funny guy. He can play such an angry and scary role. And that's why I'm so happy that they finally gave him the role that he kind of deserves, And you could tell for this movie that he really, really went all in to this character. He really loved this character. He played this TV show or this talk show host so well, I saw in an interview that he said that for preparing for the role, he didn't want to act like he was a horror talk show host. Like he was gonna his only talk show hosts are psychics and people with the paranormal. He didn't want it to seem like that. He didn't want to seem like he knew a lot about the paranormal. So to prepare for the role, he just watched David Letterman and Conan O'Brien and Johnny Carson. That's it. And that's how he prepared for this role. Nothing horror at all. So that way he can just be just a talk show host getting spooked out on one episode, So I really like that. I really like that mentality that he had going into it. But in this movie, David plays a guy or a talk show host named Jack. And Jack he's a good man for what we see. I would say a good man in a political sense. We see all these politicians and stuff, and we get people saying look at him, he's such a nice dude. Look at him donate all this money. But behind the scenes, are these politicians really who they are, who who we think they are, because this movie really unveils what is behind politicians and just celebrities in general. But Jack being the talk show host he is, or Jack just being a talk show host in general, goes through a bunch of trials and errors with ratings. He, at one point, becomes almost the best in the nation, you know, but he is fighting with Johnny Carson. Johnny Carson in this movie is his talk show host enemy, I guess, trying to get to a level higher than Johnny Carson. But throughout the movie, we see that Johnny Carson slowly is winning, and we see that Jack's show is slowly decreasing. And with that, Jack decides he's got to up the game a little. So one Halloween night, or I guess the night before Halloween, Jack decides to call someone in, and it is a psychic. And he calls in this psychic, and the psychic comes in, and forgot to mention, before all this, Jack, as kind of, I guess, a last-ditch effort, but maybe it was also supposed to be sentimental too, but he knew what he was doing for the ratings. He got his wife, who had cancer, on the show to have, like, one last sad talk with her, and that really boosted the ratings up, and then she died, like, 2 weeks later. So then Jack left the show took a little break from the show, and then he came back couple, like, I think a month before the events that this movie are about take place. But so he decides, you know, to do a Halloween type episode, and what he does is get this psychic, and the psychic comes in, and the psychic's name is Christo. Now Christo, he starts getting a little bit more than just your average spooky ghost in his head. He starts feeling a very strong entity in the building, which starts freaking Jack out a little bit, and then starts freaking Gus out. And Gus is basically Jack's Guillermo for anyone who watches Jimmy Kimmel, or is it Jimmy Fallon? I believe it's Jimmy Kimmel. Jimmy Kimmel. So anyone who watches Jimmy Kimmel, we got our boy Guillermo. Guillermo's just his doorman, who always just stands there. Every talk show host has a doorman. I can't think of any other doorman. Oh, Eric Andre and I forgot his name. But yeah, this is his doorman, shall I say. Now, Gus is a very interesting character. I'm just going to go on a little side tangent about Gus's character. I really liked his character a lot in this show. Gus's character in this, he's just such like a nice guy who gets picked on by everybody on the set, but who also has these really good ideas, but no one will listen to him. So you have a lot of sympathy for Gus throughout the show. But, you know, so people are starting to get spooked because there's some wild stuff going on the set. You know, we got a psychic's eyes rolling into the back of his head. We got lights flickering. We got glasses exploding. So people are starting to wonder. But with all this happening, Jack and his higher up, Carmichael Hag, they get, or not Carmichael Hag, sorry, Sezendor Dabo, just gonna say it like that. They kind of get an idea with this, even though some freaky stuff started going down, and that was, well, Halloween night, we got to keep this going because these ratings are boosting. So on Halloween night, they come up with the idea to bring on a girl named Lily, and Lily is a girl who survived a cultist fire, shall I say, and it was a satanic cult that sacrificed children. And basically, they had this whole gunfight with police officers. It was like, I think they said in the movie, it was like I can't remember if they said like a 3-day standoff or something like that. It was a long standoff. But eventually they just decided, hey, you know what? We can't do this. Let's just set fire to the house. And they all died, except for one survivor, and that was Lily. But Lily apparently was used for rituals a lot, and she is now possessed. But Lily is now under the care of June. And June is, I believe, a psychiatrist, but she is now under the care of June, and June makes sure Lily doesn't use her abilities or her, or I guess her other side to go loose. And June is basically just Lily's mother, and it's a really beautiful relationship. But Lily, she comes on the show, but not only does Lily come on the show, we got Carmichael Hagg played by Ian Bliss. Now Carmichael is a paranormal debunker in this show, and his whole job basically is just debunking the paranormal to prove it ain't real at all. He used to be, I guess, in the show, he used to be one of the greatest hypnotists in the world and a magician. But in this, he sits down and he's telling Jack, he's like, yeah, no, none of this can happen. None of this is real. If you can prove to me that something paranormal, real paranormal happens tonight, I will give you, I think it was like $150,000. And he pulls out a check and he shows it to the camera. Well, as the night goes on, basically things start going crazy. Everything's going awry. He gets proven wrong, and some spooky stuff goes down. Now that was the spoiler free. And now, with that being said, we will be getting into the spoiler review, but with a quick word from our sponsors.
These days, it's hard to know what's worth watching in the little free time you have at the end of the day.
We know you work hard and don't want to spend hours searching for the perfect movie.
So make things easier on yourself.
Let us do the looking for you.
Take a break from work and experience cinema.
Then come back and see if we like the movie as much as you.
With the New Wave Nerds, you can spend less time looking and more time watching and enjoying your day off.
Subscribe today. All right, now that we are back, earlier I mentioned that I love Jack's character and I love Gus's character, but let's talk a little about Lily. Now, Lily's character in this movie, as I said, she is a girl who was used by this satanic cult as a she was probably gonna end up being a sacrifice, but in the time being, she was just used for rituals, which worked because she has a demon inside of her now, and that is our big bad. She ends up being our villain for this movie. Now she gets invited onto the show, and the first thing she does is she just continuously stares at the camera. She doesn't take her eyes off the camera. She looks at all three of the cameras, doesn't take her eyes off. Now, after the introductions are over between all the characters, it cuts, and it cuts to the documentary type style that they went for, which I also am going to mention real quick because that bothered me. They did a documentary type style behind the scenes look. Like the narrator in the beginning of the movie was talking about, and this is the documentation of what happened. And it was just him explaining that this is the found footage of the Late Night with Jack show. It's actually called Night Owls, but yeah. This is the found footage. This is the part where this movie kind of throws me off a little bit, because the documentary footage that they use, or the documentary footage that they say is documentary footage, it doesn't make any sense at all. It's just them wanting to keep the movie going behind the scenes without having to say, oh, hey, we're just going to completely ignore that this is like a documentary basically, and just, go back to normal filming. What they did was they just used like a shaky cam and then threw black and white over it and called it a documentary. It doesn't work because a lot of the intense and emotional and controversial scenes with Jack and his higher up and Gus and June, and Lily, those are most of the time in the black and white behind the scenes looks, but it doesn't make any sense. You know, they're like Jack and his higher up throughout those scenes are talking about some pretty illegal stuff. You know, I don't know why they would just let it be documented by a whole crew. You know, they end up talking about someone who just died from the show, just right in front of the camera, and they were like, but don't let anyone know because we got to keep this quiet for now so no one freaks out because these ratings are good. Just right in front of the camera. I mean, what? You know, it was just it didn't make any sense to me at all. You know, they could have done something completely different if they wanted to go with a documentary type style, or just not do those scenes at all. Or they could have been like, oops, we had someone leave one of the cameras on. Actually, no, that's more stupid. But there's so many other things that they could have done for that. And it just, in my opinion, that didn't really work for the movie. It might have worked for other people, you know, or it might have looked great for other people who watch this movie. I don't know. I just feel like they could have done something different. Did I like the black and white over it? I love the black and white filter over it. It looked really cool. I like that idea. I like that most of the times when it's a different situation, some like they'll just throw in a black and white filter and that'll give us the idea. A lot of the times, you know, in movies they'll throw on a black and white filter when it's a flashback scene. You know, it makes it work, and that's kind of what they were going for with this. But yeah, no. So Lily, sorry about that side tangent, but Lily, she starts doing her thing. She starts freaking people out. You know, June, she unlocks the second side of Lily, the monster, I guess you shall say. And by doing that, they have to do a whole process by turning off the lights, sitting Lily in a chair, reciting some things. And it can only be Lily and June sitting across from each other. And it's this really intense moment that they share. And after a while, June brings out Lily's other side. Now, Lily's other side is like your average, like, poltergeist type situation, you know, deep voice, like, you know, like raw, just something deep, kind of like that, you know, not a little girl. And that freaks out Jack, because he doesn't know really what to think. He was just doing this for ratings. He was like, hey, I'm going to bring in this lady who wrote a book about a spooky girl in a satanic cult. You know, like, this will be great for the show. I don't think he fully understood. He probably didn't. I don't think anyone would have fully understood the situation, because this seems impossible to the naked eye. Like, this seems like this is not your average talk show situation. So crap starts getting wild. Ratings start shooting up. He's almost topping Carson, you know. So he's almost topping Carson. So he keeps going. He keeps it going, and he disobeys June. And he disobeys June by telling her, hey, can we do this again? Can we bring Lily back, and can we keep doing this? And June, of course, is like, no, we can't do this. We can't bring Lily's other side out. You know, it's very dangerous. If we do it for too long, she could be stuck like that. You know, it's something that we cannot do. And Jack's like, well, you know, I got some money. And he, like, you know, he bribes her. So they do it again, but with an exception by Carmichael Hagg. Now, Carmichael, as I mentioned, was back in the day apparently a very, very amazing hypnotist and magician. But now, these days, as an older man, he is a paranormal debunker. He doesn't believe in it. So he was brought on the show to have, I guess Jack kind of brought him on there to have like a whole art, like to, you know, get a little rise out of June and Carmichael, just a little bicker. But Carmichael goes a little too far, and he's like, well, that's just camera tricks. I could do that right now with hypnotism. So he sets my poor boy Gus down. And Gus doesn't want any part of this. He tries to leave the show after Lily turns into a demon. You know, he's like, hey, Jack, you're messing with some pretty crazy crap. You should stop. And Jack's like, nah. And he's like, you got to stay. He's like, you can't leave the show. He's like, I don't care what you do after this, but you got to stay for this show. And Gus is like, all right, all right. You know, this could really mess up everything for us. This could also kill us. But Jack doesn't care. So Gus stays on the show and he has to do what Jack tells him. So Gus sits down in the same chair that Lily was sitting, and Carmichael sits right across from him in the same positions that Lily and June were in. And they turn off all the lights, and Carmichael whips out a pocket watch, and he's like, look at this. And it spins, and it hypnotizes everybody in the studio, including Jack. Now, with that being said, what Carmichael does is he kind of messes with Gus's mind and messes with us as the watcher, making us believe that that it's really happening. And what happens is worms just start oozing out of Gus's neck. And then Carmichael is like, is there something wrong, Gus? And Gus is like, no, man. And he's like freaking out, you know, and he ends up like ripping open his stomach, and a bunch of worms and dirt come out. But then it cuts and everything's fine. He's just it's just like a sexy shirtless Gus now, you know, just standing there like scared. And it was just a camera trick. It was just hypnotism. And he was like, okay, I just proved that you can easily confuse the brain with a quick little spinny thing. And Jack's like, well, why don't we look back at the camera footage to see what actually happened with Lily? Because when they look back at the camera footage, of course, it was just Gus freaking out at nothing, ripping open nothing, just scratching at his belly. And that was it. And then everyone else was freaking out like, oh my God, there's worms. But nothing was actually happening. So the idea is if they go back and look at the old tapes of Lily when she was turned to the other side, nothing would happen, of course, right? Well, that isn't the case. What ended up happening is they roll the tapes, look at it, and not only did everything actually happen, something else happened too. Something in the way back. It was Jack's deceased wife as this. I will say it was a very emotional scene and a very good scene. But the makeup effects on Jack's wife were insane. She was just wearing a white robe, and they painted her white and bald. That was it. Just white too, you know. And it looked like a really crappy cool costume. If you Thor Ragnarok, she looked like Gore the God Butcher. That was it, with no black on her, just Gore. You know, and it was something that they could have done something a little better with. But, you know, anyway, they look back at the scene, they find out it's all real, and now Carmichael's like, oh, okay, what now? You know, he doesn't know exactly really what to do, because he was pretty debunked. Like, they debunked him, you know, proved him wrong. So, they want her back. They want Lily's other side to come back. So they do it again. Oh wait, no, I'm sorry. As they're rewatching the tapes, and they shut off the lights, of course, so they can watch the tapes, which is part of the ritual to bring out Lily's other side. So you have to shut off the lights, and you have to say a specific chant. And they have to shut off the lights, of course, so they can rewatch the tapes. So the lights are off. The tapes are rolling, and now it starts getting closer to the scene where June starts reciting the chant. And as she does that, what they don't even think about is what that could do to Lily. So, halfway through rewatching the recording, Lily starts like freaking out. You know, she starts turning into the other side, you know, or I'm pretty sure a chair started floating. And she isn't strapped into the chair. She isn't strapped in. There's no preparation. No one knew this was going to happen. Lily is free. So, Lily kills kills Gus first, which was sad. Again, Gus didn't do anything. Gus wanted out of there. He was a nice guy, you know. So Gus is dead. Then she kills Carmichael. And it's funny because in the first part of the movie, Jack says to Carmichael when he whips out the check, and he goes, "Hey, but don't worry, Carmichael. I bet you will be seeing that check towards the end of the show." And right before Carmichael gets burned alive by Lily, or sorry, once he gets melted by Lily, he whips out the check and he's like, "Here, I can raise it for you." And then she just burns him alive. Now, so that was a cool little foreshadowing moment. But yeah, no, she just starts murking everybody, and then people start freaking out. They're trying to run out of the building. You know, people are getting out. Jack makes it out. He goes behind the set. He's okay. June dies real quick. So yeah, no one's really left except for Jack and his higher up. Now what ends up happening is we find out this was just a delusional state by Jack. This was just Lily's own form of hypnotism, I guess, kind of on Jack, you know. He never really went behind stage. What ends up happening is Jack, you know, stuck in an illusion. He comes out back onto the set, and it's just a regular set. You know, they're doing a regular show. Gus is still alive, and he's like, "Well, come on, Jack, you're on." You know, and then things start changing, and then everything, like the set drops, and then it changes to like his wife, you know, on the deathbed, and then she's like, "How could you do this to me, Jack? How could you do this to me?" And as you remember, of course, as I said, she passed away of cancer. But this is where things start kind of getting real cool and real exciting for me, because I'm a really big conspiracy theorist. This movie secretly, well, not secretly, I guess subtle hints at it being surrounded around Bohemian Grove. And for the people who don't know, Bohemian Grove is I would say, I don't know if I should say cultist spot, but it's a spot that politicians and very, very, very wealthy politicians and celebrities go to, I believe, once a year. And it's in the middle of these deep, deep, dark woods. And supposedly they worship this owl god, and this massive statue of this owl god. And we got Bush there. We got, you know, sorry, George Bush. Of course we got Bushes there. It's the woods. But we had Bush there. You know, we had so many presidents there. There's actors, there's singers that go there. And apparently they do mock sacrifices, you know. I don't even know if they do real sacrifices. What do I know? They probably, I mean, it's said that they do rituals. So that's Bohemian Grove, and that's a real thing. Now this movie kind of centers around that, and Jack apparently, to get to where he is, once he started rising, once he had his little shoot up of fame, he was accepted into Bohemian Grove, and he went to Bohemian Grove, and that's kind of like where everything starts. And what we learn is that Jack did a ritual to become famous, but at what cost? And it was at the cost of his wife. So he blames himself for the death of his wife because he had to sacrifice something. He had to sacrifice something to, I guess, the owl god, which I'm just going to say is the devil. And well, kind of towards the end of the movie, before everything actually starts going haywire, Lily says to Jack, "Jack, you don't remember me. We met deep in the tall trees," which was, mind you, a really cold line. But yeah, she's like, "You don't remember me? We met deep in the tall trees." And Jack's face kind of froze. And during this whole like hypno state that Jack's in, he ends up walking through just a crowd of people with owl masks, and he walks up to this man in a full owl costume, and he gets on his knees and he drinks the blood. And that's kind of how we're supposed to take his wife's death. We're supposed to take it as Jack sacrificed his wife to get to where he is. Now, I don't believe he knew he was going to sacrifice his wife, of course. I believe that he was supposed to sacrifice something, but he didn't know what. So it was his wife, and he blames himself for it. And now he's connected with the Grove. Now, during this hypnosis state, as he's sitting by his wife on her deathbed, his wife looks over and sees the satanic knife that Lily and June brought to show everybody, to say, yeah, this is an artifact that we recovered from the burnt down satanic cult's house, and it was one of the sacrificial knives. So they have it on the set, and Jack's wife is like, just end it. And he looks over, and there's the sacrificial knife. And Jack takes the knife crying, and he slowly puts it to her chest, and he pushes it in, and he kills his wife to end her suffering. But when he kills his wife to end her suffering, the hypnosis state ends. And all the camera sees is Jack now holding the lifeless body of Lily with the sacrificial knife in her chest. So Jack, was like framed by the devil himself. That's something I did not expect when watching this, and that's why I really love this movie. It was just something. It was just such a surprising series of events that I didn't expect, and it's definitely a movie I'm gonna end up rewatching, probably rewatching, but also making fun of at times. Something I didn't mention was the CGI and the effects in general. There were a lot of blood effects that were not pretty. There were a lot of electrocution effects that were not very pretty, but I didn't want to go too hard on the effects in this episode or the CGI, just because of the budget that they had for this movie. Although I would like to mention, even though the budget that they did have for this movie was low, they almost exceeded Terrifier 2. They almost exceeded them in money, and which is very impressive, because Terrifier 2 was a hot movie. It was something else. I still have yet to watch it, mainly because I'm a little spooked. No, I just haven't gotten around to it, but I've been hearing it's very well liked. So for this movie to almost top that's pretty good. So that's one reason I didn't really go too hard on it, but it doesn't mean I'm not going to laugh at some of the effects while watching it. But, well, that'll be it for this episode. Thank you all for watching. Remember to go like and subscribe down below, and I will catch you all on the next one.